Yeah, but it should be in front, not in the back. All right. It's too white. No, it's all white. There we go. Otherwise, I look like I'm sick. The white light. Okay. No bugs. You think it's fine. Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, that's loud. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Joy Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Jana Balaba Yiri Baradhari Gopi Jana Balaba Yiri Baradhari Yasodanandana Prajadana Ranjana Yasodanandana Prajadana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Vanachadi Yamuna Tera Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Jana Pallava Girivardhati Gopi Jana Pallava Girivardhati Yatsuranandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasuranandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachati Yamuna Tera Vanachari Jayarad Madhuva Kunya Bihari Radhu Madhuva Jayarad Madhuva Kunya Bihari Madhava. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parabhidakacharya, also Teta Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Chandanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Padurabha Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vindikajai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Shaim Kun Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Kijai Vrindavanam Kijai Machuridam Kijai Jagadata Sami Kijai Yamunamai Kijai Shimani Lasidevi Kijai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Kijai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay. Yeah, I try my best. I try my best. That it's have to be up to Jagat because there's some connections there that I'm not aware of. He set it up, not me. So Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, Chapter 22. They can watch on Facebook though. It's on Facebook. So Chapter 22, Text 4. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Akatyayane Maha Maye Maha Yogane Adhishvare Nanda Gopa Sutang Devi Patim Me Kuru Te Namaha Iti Mantrang Japantyas Taha Pujang Chakro Kumarikaha Kachayane Mahamaye Mahayoginyatishvare Nandagopa Sutang Devi Patimme Kurute Namaha Iti Mantram Japantyastha Pujam Chakru Kumar Kaha Kachayane Mahamaye Mahayoginyarishvare Nandagopa Sutam Devi Patimme Kurute Namaha Iti Mantram Japantyastha Pujam Chakru Kumar Kaha Kachayane Mahamaye Mahayoginyarishvare Nandagopa Sutam Devi Patimme Kurute Namaha Iti Mantram Japantyastha Pujam Chakru Kumar Kaha. Okay. else? Okay. Katyayane. O goddess Katyayane. Mahamaye. O great potency. Mahayogane. O possessor of great mystic power. Adishvare. O mighty controller. Nanda Gopasutam, the son of Maharaj Nanda. Devi, O goddess. Patim, the husband. May, my. Kuru, please make. Te, unto you. Namaha, my obeisances. Iti, with these words. Mantram, the hymn. Japanjaha, chanting. Taha, they. Pujam, worship. Chakrahu, performed. Kumarikaha, the unmarried girls. First of all, I want to ask, what do you notice with the translations of the first part of this? No. Of the first part. What is a common denominator of many of the words? In the vocative, yeah. They're actually crying out. So it's not just like, okay, goddess Katyayani. Okay, great potency. Okay, possessor of mystic. Oh! See, you notice there? Oh, goddess Katyayani. Oh, great potency. Oh, possessor. Because this is like a vocative. Oh, mighty controller. Devi, oh goddess. Anyway. So translation. So this is the mood, which we're going to talk about in a second. Each of the young unmarried girls performed her worship while chanting the following mantra again. O goddess Katyayani, O great potency of the Lord, O possessor of great mystic power and mighty controller of all, please make the son of Nanda Maharaj my husband. I offer my obeisances unto you. This is imploring. So you can repeat. Each of the young unmarried girls performed her worship while chanting the following mantra. O goddess Katyayani, O great potency of the Lord, O possessor of great mystic power and mighty controller of all, please make the son of Nanda Maharaj my husband. I offer my obeisances unto you. Also, this is the form of the prayers. Before you ask something, you have to praise someone. That's another point that's being mentioned here. You can't just like go up to the goddess Katyayani and say, I would like this, goddess. You have to say, you're great. I mean, you'll notice this in many, many prayers, actually all the prayers, that there is the glorification first before the request. And that's like mundane. It's not mundane, but it's like in this mundane world. that if you want to sell something or you want something from someone, you probably say some nice words to them first. I have one godbrother who in the past I borrowed money from, and I glorify him first. But he sort of caught on to what I was doing after a while. He said, "How much do you want this time?" So anyway, purport by the servants of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. According to various acharyas, the goddess Durga, mentioned in this verse, is not the illusory energy of Krishna called Maya, but rather the internal potency of the Lord, known as Yoga Maya. The distinction between the internal and external or illusory potency of the Lord is described in the Narada Pancharatra in the conversation between Shruti and Vidya. Janatika Parakantam Saiva Durga Taratmika Yapara Parama Shaktir Mahavishnu Swarupini Yasya Vijnana Matrena Paranam Paramatmanaha Mahurta Deva Devasya Praptir Bhavati Nanyata Ekeyam Prema Sarvasva Svobhava Gokuleshvati Ananya Ananya Sulabhogya Adidevo Kideshvaraha Asha Avarika Shaktir Mahamaya Kileshvari Yamugdam Jagat Sarvam Sarve Deha Bhimaninaha. The translation of this is, the Lord's inferior potency, known as Durga, is dedicated to His loving service. Being the Lord's potency, this inferior energy is non-different from Him. There's another superior potency whose form is on the same spiritual level as that of God Himself. Simply by scientifically understanding this supreme potency, one can immediately achieve the supreme soul of all souls, who is the Lord of all lords. There is no other process to achieve Him. That supreme potency of the Lord is known as Gokuleshvari, the goddess of Gokula. Her nature is to be completely absorbed in love of God, and through her, one can easily obtain the primeval God, the Lord of all that be. This internal potency of the Lord has a covering potency known as Mahamaya, who rules the material world. In fact, she bewilders the entire universe, and thus everyone within the universe falsely identifies himself with the material body. From the above, we can understand that the internal and external, or superior and inferior potencies of the Supreme Lord are personified as Yogamaya and Mahamaya, respectively. The name Durga is sometimes used to refer to the internal superior potency, as stated in the Pancharatra. In all mantras used to worship Krishna, the presiding deity is known as Durga. Thus, in the transcendental sound vibrations glorifying and worshiping the absolute truth, Krishna, the presiding deity of the particular mantra or hymn, is called Durga. Not that Krishna is called Durga, but the presiding deity of the particular mantra or hymn. The name Durga, therefore, refers also to that personality who functions as the internal potency of the Lord, and who is thus on the platform of Shuddha Sattva, pure transcendental existence. This internal potency is understood to be Krishna's sister, known also as Ekanangsha or Subhadra. This is the Durga who is worshipped by the gopis in Vrindavan. Several acharyas have pointed out that the ordinary people are sometimes bewildered and think that the names Maha, Maya, and Durga refer exclusively to the external potency of the Lord. Even if we accept hypothetically that the gopis were worshipping the external Maya, there's no fault on their part, since in their pastimes of loving Krishna, they were acting as ordinary members of society. Srila Prabhupada comments in this regard, the Vaishnavas generally do not worship any demigods. Srila Narottama Das Thakur has strictly forbidden all worship of the demigods for anyone who wants to advance in pure devotional service. Yet the gopis, who are beyond compare in their affection for Krishna, were seen to worship Durga. The worshippers of the demigods are also sometimes mentioned that the worshippers of demigods also sometimes mention that the gopis also worship goddess Durga. But we must understand the purpose of the gopis. Generally, people worship goddess Durga for some material benediction. Here, the gopis could adopt any means to satisfy or serve Krishna. That was the super excellent characteristic of the gopis. They worshiped goddess Durga completely for 1 month in order to have Krishna as their husband. Every day they prayed for Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaja, to become their husband. The conclusion is that a sincere devotee of Krishna will never imagine any material quality to exist in the transcendental gopis, who are the most exalted devotees of the Lord. The only motivation in all their activities was simply to love and satisfy Krishna. And if we foolishly consider their activities to be mundane in any way, it will be impossible for us to understand Krishna consciousness. So, let me recite the verse again. We've got to go all the way back. Right. Katyani Mahamaye Mahayogin Yadishvari Nanda Gopasutam Devi Patime Kurute Namaha Iti Mantram Japantyasta Pujam Chakru Kabarikaha. So, Omagana Timidanda Shagananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I'm going to approach it from a particular angle here in my discussion. The angle is that one should not project their material conceptions upon a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And sometimes we will see pure devotees of the Lord not only worship the demigods in this particular case. Of course, they were worshiping the transcendental Yogamaya, the Supreme Lord, but externally it appeared like they were worshiping Durga. But sometimes we will see devotees of the Lord even violate certain Vedic injunctions in order to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we see this, of course, the example I give oftentimes is the example of Srila Prabhupada, who crossed an ocean, who had lived in apartments with people who are under the influence of intoxication. And that's prohibited, because there's injunctions in the Vedic literatures that state even if you see the face of a materialist, what are you supposed to do? Jump in the Ganges without even changing your clothes. You don't even have time to, let me put my bathing suit on. You just jump in the Ganges. So, we're going out and we're meeting so many materialists, obviously. Probably I am a materialist anyway, but that's another subject matter. And what's happening? And then you take the case of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was even more radical. To please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was rolling, wouldn't call it cigarettes, but biddies, what BDs or whatever you call them, rolling them for the workers who were working at the temple, constructing the temple. He was making arrangement for meat to be served to the Britishers. And even he said to his disciples who were preaching in the West, they can't give up eating meat then, probably. Then he said, give them meat then. And when he was asked about some of these changes or radical activities, he said, I've waited many, many lifetimes to do this. So, this is a pure devotee. Now, that doesn't excuse us in doing this. It's not that if you come into my house and find me worshiping Durga for a Tesla or something like that. I mean, that would be highly improper. But with these great pure devotees, one has to see what their motivation is. You know, even going to the Mahabharata, I was thinking about this because I really like the Mahabharata, that you have Krishna violating, you know, ordinary dharma in the Mahabharata, right? Does anyone know any examples of that? No one knows it. What's an example? Yeah. He broke his promise. Cheating. Telling Duryodhana what? What did he tell Duryodhana? He said what? Yeah, well, what did he tell Duryodhana before that? You wear gumshoes. It's not proper to be in front of your mother like that naked. So you find that the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then how did Krishna arrange for Arjuna to kill Jayadratha? Yeah, he had the sun covered so it appeared to be dusk. I mean, so many. You know, like you said, Krishna encouraged Bhimsen to kill Duryodhana by striking him below the belt. You know, all these rules are being broken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What's that? Yeah. That's another one. He told Yudhisthira he was too attached to, you know, dharma. You know, like mundane dharma. He told Yudhisthira just lie and say that Ashwatthama has been killed by Bhimsen, when in fact it was actually Ashwatthama the elephant. And so, you know, he's incurring lying, and when he's young, he's stealing. You know, of course, that's another thing. So there, and then at the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra, grandfather Bhishma realizes that he was wrong to keep his promise and support the Kurus and support the whoever was the king, when in fact he should have broken his promise for a higher principle. So there's higher principles and lower principles, and one has to be able to distinguish between them. So in the case of the gopis, I wanted to read a verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is also in the Pajavali and other literatures, that actually illustrates their motivation. Of course, their motivation is what? Intense hankering to please Krishna. Lolyam. Anyone's heard of that word before? And at the same time, we have intense hankering in this material world to do what? Please ourselves, please our senses. And therefore we have this injunction in the Nectar of Instruction. What is it? Achahara prayasa cha pajalpa niyamagraha janasangas chaloyam cha sadvir bhaktir vinashyati. That if one is hankering, not just hankering, but greedy hankering for anything in this material world, that's a cause of fall down from Krishna consciousness. So the price of pure devotional service, the price of attaining Krishna, which is illustrated here by the gopis, is lolyam, but lolyam to please Krishna. And in the conversation, what we're going to read today, is the talks between the Lord and Ramananda Roy about how to achieve pure devotional service. Actually, not only how to achieve, but the different stages of perfection. And of course, previous to this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has rejected different aspects of even the Vedic culture insofar as achieving perfection. He's rejected Varnashram. I know everyone's talking about Varnashram now. Even yesterday at the GBC meeting, we had elaborate talks about Varnashram. And actually Prabhupada wanted Varnashram, but that's to regulate society, to keep everybody from killing each other. To keep to keep society going. And if people weren't able to execute devotional service, good. But the reason Prabhupada was so enthusiastic about Varnashram is he saw all these people who he initiated, who came to the Krishna consciousness movement, deviate, stop chanting their rounds or something like that. So you need a fallback position, at least be human beings. If you can't be a devotee, be at least a human being. What does a human being mean? I mean, I think I should explain this. A human being is one who regulates his senses for a higher purpose, or just regulates his senses. An animal is someone who has unregulated senses. Adanta gopir vishatam tamishram. Nunam pramata kurate vikarma yadindriya pritiya apranoti. Like this, modern society is worse than an animal society. Why is it worse? Because animals can be tamed. Prabhupada said that. Prabhupada was quoting the Acharyas. And these human beings can't be tamed by a mantra. Of course, the Hare Krishna mantra, but, it's not that. Like Prabhupada even gave the example of a snake. And I understand the snake is not actually charmed by a mantra. He's charmed by the movements of the flute, because snakes can't hear that well. But anyway, Prabhupada gave the example of a snake that can be, you see these snakes in India, the snake charmers. They're charmed. I've never been able to do that with a human being. Charm a human being. So anyway, so the human beings are worse. The so-called entities in human bodies are worse than animals because there's no regulation to them. No regulation. I mean, just that. I was just hearing about a marriage the other day, not the marriage of the temple, where everybody gets like drunk and just rolls on the ground and just like says profane words to each other. I mean, just like, what's happening? Anyway, so getting back to the point. So Varnashram is necessary to regulate society. However, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his discussions with Ramananda Roy, and rejected the concept of Varnashram as actually contributing to the highest goal, or being the method of achieving the highest goal. So ultimately, they're going through all these different steps. Rejected Varnashram, then he rejects Karma Mishra Bhakti and Jnana Mishra Bhakti, and finally comes to the point of pure devotional service, which satisfies one. And then the verse I'm going to read today, which is the method to achieve pure devotional service. Text 70 in Majja 8. Which is actually one of the key verses in devotional service, which Prabhupada really loved this verse. And Rupa Goswami, in his Pajavali and other places, repeats this verse. It's Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Matahi Kriyatam Yadi Kuto Pi Labhyate Tatra Loyam Api Mulyam Ekalam Janma Koti Shukritar Na Labhyate. And I'm going to do the word-by-word translations here, but you don't have to repeat. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita means absorbed in the mellows of executing devotional service to Krishna. Matahi, intelligence. Kriyatam, let it be purchased. Yadi, if. Kuta api, somewhere. Labhyate is available. Tatra, there. Lolyam, greed. Api, indeed. Mulyam, price. Ekalam, only. Janma koti, of millions of births. Sukritahai, by pious activities, not labhyate, is obtained. So this actually describes the gopis' mentality. That's why I'm reading this verse. Pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by pious activity in hundreds and thousands of lives. It can be attained only by paying one price. That is, intense greed to obtain it. If it is available somewhere, one must purchase it without delay. So this is a very important verse, and I'll read the purport too. The previous two verses are included in the Pajavali 13-14, an anthology compiled by Srila Rupa Goswami. Verse 69 refers to devotional service and faith, and verse 70, which is this verse, refers to devotional service rendered out of intense greed. The first is devotional service rendered in accordance with the regulated principles, and the second refers to spontaneous loving service of the Lord without extraneous endeavor. Henceforth, the basic principle underlying the talks between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy will be spontaneous loving service to the Lord. The regulative principles, according to the injunctions of the Shastras, are necessary insofar as one's original dormant Krishna consciousness is not spontaneously awakened. An example of spontaneous action is the flowing of rivers into the ocean. Nothing can stop this flow of water. Similarly, when one's dormant Krishna consciousness is awakened, it spontaneously flows to the lotus feet of Krishna without impediment. Whatever will be spoken henceforth by Ramananda Roy, based on spontaneous love, will be agreeable to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Lord will ask him more and more about this subject. So I want to talk about how to achieve this aloyum, spontaneous devotion, hankering for Krishna consciousness, and what that means insofar as our own lives is concerned. So it doesn't mean that we should all run to where? Radhakund right now. Because you read the Nectar of Instruction, what does it say about Radhakund? That Radhakund and no, anyone who's intelligent will not give up living there, basically. So I must be dumb. So, because I'm not living there. So that's not really how we should apply this principle of volume or hankering. The principle of volume or hankering should be applied, and I've spoken about this many times before, in relationship to pleasing Krishna's devotee. Just like here in the Bhagavatam, we're talking about, or Bhagavatam is talking about, not me talking about, the gopis trying to please Katyayani, right? Who is Krishna's devotee, right? And she's an expansion, of course, of Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani is the Adi Shakti of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means the original potency of the Lord. And all the Shaktis expand from her. Vrinda Devi, Purnamasi, who is Yogamaya, actually. She appears as a very older lady in the Vrindavan pastimes. And then expansions of her, such as the Durga in this material world, they're all expansions or expansions of expansions like that. So the point is the service to a devotee. Mahatseva Mahur Vimuktes. By serving and pleasing a devotee. And of course we chant like that every morning. So for us, the volume should be an intense desire to please His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. And in order to please His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, now I'm going to draw a parallel between the gopis worshipping Durga or the goddess Katyayani, is that sometimes we even have to pray. The Prabhupada talked about this. Sometimes we even have to praise the materialists. Prabhupada gave the example, I thought this was quite humorous, that when you're preaching you have to say, and I forget the Sanskrit or the Bengali, he probably gave the Bengali for this verse, he said, oh, you are so intelligent, right? And that's like a prayer, you're offering prayers to the materialist. Or you're so intelligent, now forget everything. So here you have a devotee praising materialists, which is described as like those who are like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. So you have an injunction in the Bhagavatam, right? Swavidvara hostrakarai samstuta parusha pushu nayat karna pato bita jatunama garagraja. Those who are like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses praise people who are not Krishna conscious. So you're violating, it's interesting. You think about it. It's a parallel to, let's say, the gopis, even if you would say that they're worshiping the material goddess Durga, who is actually a pure devotee of Krishna. There's nothing wrong with worshiping her and pleasing her. Don't be under her jurisdiction. Even if you were to say that, it's transcendental because of the motivation. So that's the point made in the purport here, isn't it? The motivation. Of course, one also has to be very careful to really understand what their motivation is. Like someone even could be distributing books and their whole motivation is to be considered the best book distributor in the movement. But the motivation, the real point is what your motivation is. It's even beyond the sankalpa. What am I going to do? Why am I doing this? But it's the real why when you drill down 1,000 times. What is my motive? And we got to really examine this. And if you have the right motivation, and it's in accordance with the order to please your spiritual master, please to Srila Prabhupada, then it's transcendental. So you're praising a materialist. Actually the devotees on Sankirtan, they always, not always, but generally that's how you distribute books. Where are you from? And they say, well, I'm from Kalamazoo. That's Michigan, in case you haven't figured that out. Oh, Kalamazoo, I really like it there. And I have so many friends. Really? What's your friend's name? I don't remember. So it's like that. So you're doing something that in one sense is against the injunction of the Shastra to please the spiritual master. And Prabhupada was doing so many things, and establishing even what his spiritual master prohibited, which was what? Having ladies living in the ashram. And to please his spiritual master, even going against one of his spiritual master's injunctions as far as running a temple. Of course, Prabhupada is on that platform of absolute purity. He can do that. So, in other words, in order to preach Krishna, now we're getting to the point, in order to preach Krishna consciousness, then we have to see, like Prabhupada would emphasize, utility is the principle. To please Prabhupada, we have to be ready to not make injunctions against the regulated principles, but to actually adjust some of the details in presenting Krishna consciousness that they may not do in India. Prabhupada makes this point very, very clear. So anyway, the point I'm making is that our intense greed, if we want pure devotional service, should be to please Prabhupada. And then, I was asked that question last night in the class. One of the people in the class asked me, he said, how should I personally apply? We're going through the Nectar Devotion, talking about, actually last night we were talking about conjugal ras, and then we got into the indirect rases. First one was humor, and then after that was chivalry. So he was asking me the questions, how do I apply that in my life? And I said, you simply concentrate intensely, loyum, on pleasing Prabhupada. And like the gopis were intensely meditating on pleasing Durga to get Krishna. So we should be intensely pleasing on meditating or hankering, greed to please Prabhupada so we get Krishna. Anyway, so this is the point. So we've got about 5 more seconds left. 5 more, 5, 4. What's the question? Take some good association. Chant more. Chant more. Pray to Krishna. Yes, it's good to see your motives are materialistic because you're introspective. But like that, we should actually think like that, and then we pray to Krishna. Please, this is why I'm doing this, and reveal your mind to Krishna. Reveal your mind to more advanced devotees. Adati pratragranati, guyang akati prichati. And ask for help. Until we ask for help, we won't be helped. We have to pray to Krishna for help. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram, patita mam vishame bhavambudo, kripaya tava padapankaja, stita duli sadrasam vichintya. O son of Nanda Maharaj, as we'll be chanting in a few minutes, I'm your eternal servant.